Hi guys, welcome back to Guild Chat. I'm your host Ruby, and we have a couple of new guests on Guild Chat today. We have two guys who we've not had on before, so why don't we jump right in, and thank you guys for joining. I really appreciate it because I think this is going to be a fun show today. I'd like you both to start and just let us know who you are and what you do for the company, and you're sitting closest to me, so you get picked on.
Okay, my name is Brian Walter. I'm an animator here at ArenaNet. I get to make all the creatures and stuff move.
Thank you.
My name is Ronald Kury. I'm a creature artist, so I make all the monsters that you see running around.
Awesome.
And you get to kill and bite and stuff.
And be smashed by.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so since we have all of these really cool new creatures running around the Maguma jungle in Heart of Thorns, I thought we would talk to these guys today, and you are now responsible for representing the entire creature team. No pressure.
Nope.
Not at all.
This is why I clipped a mic to you, so you can't run away.
That's what
But
we're
we wanted to talk a little bit about the process of creating these guys, because there's such a huge variety in there, but they're all so distinct that it's kind of neat to talk about. So from a layman's term, where do you even begin? I mean, how do you begin to put, here's some new dinosaurs, here are the Mordrum, here are these mushroom guys? Where does the process start?
Well, the process actually is a big brainstorm of a lot of members of different teams. We have designers, we have concept artists, we have creature artists, and we try to come up with what the story is where it's gonna lead us, what the new world and environment is gonna be, and based on the environments, we start constructing a creature and a fauna that lives in it. So whatever adapts to the environment the best is where we go.
Mm-hmm. So that's where the mushroom guys come from. Because
yeah,
it's
we have a big jungle and we want to have something, kind of related to it, I guess.
All right, so you've got this big brainstorm with all of these teams coming in, and we already knew that Mordremoth was a thing. We knew where we were going. We knew we were going into the Maguma jungle. So do you just start, I mean, like you mentioned to me earlier that the concept artists jump in and they get to play and they get to have some fun. Do you just start looking and seeing what appeals and what you think would fit?
Yeah, well, the concept artists, luckily we have one of the best concept artists in the industry. I mean, they're incredible. So finding inspiration on anything that they do it's just a lucky position in which we're at. They give us indirect concepts. They don't necessarily give us full concepts. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they sit around and draw things for us. And we don't take it to heart. We look at what they have and let that inspire us or move us in a specific direction. Sometimes they'll have elements that we're like, oh, look at that, that looks incredible. And sometimes we actually look at something that they make and we're like, oh, we're just gonna make that. Like we're not even gonna change it. That's just beautiful.
This is absolutely perfect.
But yeah, it drives the feel of the game and it drives the feel of the creatures. And that's what we are into a lot, like making sure that it feels like the universe and the world that we're trying to build, not just directly grab from nature. It's like, I'm going to make a camel, like add a little sense of Guild Wars into it.
Camels not confirmed before we even go there.
yeah, no camels.
No, you're not going to find a camel. Wait a minute, can we have a camel like rampaging through the Maguma jungle? Because that would amuse me endlessly. That would just the one, and every once in a while you see him coming through.
Yeah, no,
like
actually.
Easter egg, basically.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, the reason I said camel is because we were
hilarious.
looking at the Doliacs.
Oh, yeah.
And at first, when I was trying to figure out what a Doliac was, because we were trying to make a desert Doliac, I was looking at camel references because what is a quadruped that runs in the desert? It's a Doliac. I mean, a camel.
I knew what you meant.
I tried to bring some elements of it, but it ended up being much more of like a deer-looking animal.
It's still kind of cool. I mean, it looks good.
Yeah,
I like it. All right, so we can actually I'm going to have you check your mic box and make sure it's on, because you're super quiet. Or you could just shout into our microphones. We'll share with you.
It's just being very shy.
Maybe.
That's totally okay.
Better? Just talk directly into it?
Awesome. We're doing it live.
Turn your head.
All right, but we solved the problem, and I'm happy.
Okay.
Great.
So, all right, so generally creating it, I got a little bit of cheat studying beforehand. In general, the process can kind of be grouped under 3 umbrellas of modeling, animation, and skills. Is that
Yeah.
Best.
That's pretty good.
Breaking it down as simple as possible.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
This is like trying to break anyone's job down into, yeah, we'll just describe it in one word and it's totally fine. So how linear is the process? I mean, how much do you have people finishing one thing and handing it off versus you have all of these teams working together? How much do you balance those two things?
Well, it's always different for each creature. Like sometimes Ronald will have something that's just done and it's time to move on to it. And sometimes we have a nice back and forth to be like, oh, it'd be cool if he could maybe look this way so that when I animate it, it can do this thing.
Yeah.
And then he can go back, make some adjustments. So it's always kind of a back and forth, but you don't always have the time for complete back and forth. So
We should have leisure time all the time in the world. Nobody really wants to, nobody's waiting to play with them.
yeah.
Yeah, so you should probably finish them up at some point.
It's actually the opposite. We can't wait to play with them. Like when we create things, we sculpt them really quickly. We get like a big rough of the shapes, and we automatically want it to be in game. So we do this process which is called dynameshing. I don't know if you guys know about ZBrush. You just kind of reduce all the amount of polygons in a very, very algorithmic way, and you put it in the game with just a blue model. So you can see it moving, and you apply it to a very quick rig, and then the animators can start playing with it, and then you get the feeling of what the pose is going to be, and then you get all the feedback of like, oh, let's make the arms bigger or the legs longer, or some stuff doesn't really line up. And
Yeah, seeing it in action probably makes an enormous difference.
yeah.
You mentioned rigs, and we had talked about that beforehand and I just really love the description that you gave as far as the puppet and the strings.
Yeah, so
the rig of a creature.
Years ago, I actually came up with some explanation for kids that I was teaching, and the way that it's easiest to understand when it comes to creatures and characters, you have, if you think about a puppet, the model is the puppet, the actual physical puppet, that you have somebody that comes and sculpts it and paints it and models it and makes it all pretty. The rigger is the one that creates the strings that connect the puppet. And then the animator is the one that becomes the puppeteer, that animates and brings it to life. So that's the different distinction of the three main parts of bringing a character to life.
So the animator has all the power is what I'm hearing here.
Yeah.
You're the puppet master.
Yeah, basically, I get to control what it does.
Can we change your title to puppet master? Because in light of everything.
I mean, it is a digital puppet. I mean, it is kind of just a sock puppet, just in a computer.
It's a very fancy sock puppet.
Say how it moves. So.
So we had talked about the rigging on some of these creatures. You were telling me about the mushroom guys because this sounds terrible because they have murdered my face so many times. They're ridiculously cute. I'm sorry. They're adorable when they are murdering me. And that was one where we used a rig we already had in existence.
Yeah. So since we do have making rigs and all that stuff is a lot of work, we try to share when we can. So the mushroom guys are actually on the Scrit rig, and it allows us to borrow animations, and then we can make adjustments and make them unique for certain attacks and stuff. But it allows you to have a rig already made with animations already attached to that character, and then you get to make unique ones. So you have more time to make more stuff. Yeah,
you could, if you've got something that you already have in hand, it just kind of slims down that part of the workload.
Yeah.
So what helps you decide, okay, I already have a rig that I can use for this thing that I'm building, versus we need to create a new one?
It's a very tricky question.
It's kind of a big question.
So when we started working on Heart of Thorns, we had a budget of how many creatures we wanted, and then how many creatures we could do based on creatures that we already had and creatures that we could start from scratch, meaning you have a new skeleton and a new rig and a new model and new proportions, new animations. And it's a lot of work, as you can imagine. So we try not to shoot ourselves in the foot and do stuff. If we can expand from that point, we do. But we like to be much more in line with what we can do, what we know we can do.
Yeah. When it's something that's really different and unique, that we know we're going to need something new for to really sell the personality of this new creature, that's when we'll usually go about and make a whole new rig and have a whole new silhouette and a whole new...
Actually, that drives it a lot too, like silhouettes and motion. If you have something that is proportionately completely different from something that you have in the game, even though something might have some of the animations, if you're adding a lot to it, just might as well make a new rig.
So what's one that warranted a new rig? Am I allowed to ask?
Yeah, I mean, the Wyverns were the biggest. Wyvern. They're the biggest.
I think it's, I don't know. No matter what you say, someone's going to say that you're wrong.
Yeah.
So you could just make something up if you wanted.
So on the creature team, we actually have somebody, Kate, shout out, she is our encyclopedia, living encyclopedia of creatures. So whenever you have any questions regarding the precedence of precedence, English is breaking, sorry.
Like the pronunciation?
Well, no, like where a creature comes from, the mythology behind it. Like she will come, like she will just appear next to you and be like, actually, and then she gives you the whole background.
What?
Of it. It's awesome because we're always learning stuff.
Oh my gosh,
it's
that's
really,
amazing.
really cool.
Encyclopedia, basically.
Yeah.
All right, so for our purposes, we can say Wyvern.
Okay.
Yeah, we can say Wyvern.
Go ahead, tell me I'm wrong. All right, so that one needed a totally, I can't think of anything that's even vaguely shaped like that.
Yeah, we never really had anything in that proportion or that moved in that way. And so it needed a whole new rig and to stand out as a new addition to the Guild Wars universe.
Yeah, I think it was totally worth it.
Yeah. On an opposite example, we have the little cave bats that run around. They're actually using an existing rig, which is the dogleg crawler, but we actually had to add animations to it because, it's flying and jumping and doing things. So that makes it a lot easier because you can set proportions rather quickly and then just add animations on top to things. And we get something that looks completely different. And it's something that we've been doing a lot.
That's really cool.
Master it.
So you can work with that foundation that you already have and still... And it's not just, it's this thing, but now it's blue instead of orange.
Yeah, exactly. Or like when you look at humanoid creatures, you don't necessarily need to make another humanoid. We already have different scales and proportions for different, like if you grab a male and a female, they're just totally different. You just add some animations to it, but the proportions, the bodily proportions are just going to give you what you want.
That's awesome. All right, so do you want to show off what you've been working on a little bit?
Sure.
All right, let's start with... Oh, this guy.
So this is the Stonehead T-Rex. This is a attack animation I did for him. He had a previous attack that after testing, it wasn't really reading how he wanted. So I wanted him to, he does this attack and it throws like a bunch of brush forward and knocks you over and stuff. And so I added in this flip to really sell the idea that it's propelling stuff forward at the player. And it was just really fun.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of that in the tail that you can see. All right, and his roll. We've already talked about how I have a problem with rolling creatures that completely smash me flat into the ground.
Yeah, the dino roller guy.
The arrowhead.
Yeah, arrowhead.
Oh, my gosh. All right, so what's this one?
This guy is a boss you'll fight up in the canopy. It's one of the... he does this attack where he gets launched at you and does these dagger strikes.
So I'm assuming this is pretty early on in the process.
Yeah, what you're looking at is
because
actually
he does look a lot cooler.
Yeah, it's the Maya production. Like when we animate, we turn up a lot of things, so it's easier for us to work on it in real time. And so this is just a preview, straight preview out of Maya.
So when you do this, what are you looking for? What is this helping you with? Or is this just one step and here's what it looks like and now we're going to make it look prettier?
Yeah, this was kind of, just selling the idea of what we were going for, getting a visual representation, and seeing if it's something we wanted to go forward with.
Nice. I'm going to look at that one a lot differently in the future. Oh, this guy.
Yeah, and this is another guy in that fight. I did the animations for this guy where he does these big swings as he walks across the platform, knocking you around and stuff.
Very cool. All right, so that's kind of the general animation. How about some more specific guys? Brain
Brainbug.
Brainbug.
Yes.
That is a horrible name. I think I'm trying to reject it from my mind.
It was actually a lot of fun to look at being animated because once you look at the model, it's like this solid big chunk. But once it starts to animate, you see this gooey, like goopy thing that's just like crawling
You're
everywhere.
not selling this to me at all.
Oh my God, it's so cool. It's so cool. I mean, all the props to the animators. I mean, Brian's puppet master. Puppet
the props to the
mastery
puppet
is
masters.
what brings everything to life.
Well, I'm only one of many great puppet masters on the team. So
Awesome. So yeah, we do have this. We've got this just big globby guy, but the closer you look, the more is going on, and I've noticed that in a lot of the stuff we're going to look at today.
Yeah, once you see it in the game and there's all these effects and animations and you're running around, like there's a lot of little details that you don't get to notice, but if you stop and look, they're beautifully animated and there's a lot
They really
of
are.
details.
It's kind of hard to be able to stop and look, but
yeah,
Especially if it's coming at you.
if it's coming at you, yeah, you have time while you're trying to recover from the KD and just go in there. So does he start when you're watching him dig into the ground and everything, how much are you tweaking his animations as you go? Are you just, okay, this looks too stiff, this looks like too much of just like a one-piece blob, or do the bones of the thing allow it to naturally move this way anyway?
Yeah, I mean, that's when we build the rig. We make sure we can move the pieces on the creature we want to move. So like those jelly sacks on his back, we make sure that
I can't
they
look.
have a control there so that we can actually animate them and get the feeling we want and the grossness that we may want.
I have to say you did well. You did very well. Let's go a little bit bigger. Let's see, who do we have next? Do we have, I think we have Dino Rider?
There we go.
Oh, this
the Dino
guy.
Rider, yes. So the Dino Rider, do you know who did this model?
This was done by Marcus Jackson.
Oh,
It's
nice.
one of our
Thank you,
cool
Marcus.
creature artists.
Yeah, I love this model. And this was animated by Scott Dickey, most of Dino Rider, and he does some awesome work. So this was like, when you do enough damage to him, the guy gets knocked off. So this is the newer revision. We had one that was in-game. It wasn't really reading as well. It took a little too long. So this, he kind of took another stab at it for the gameplay purposes and came up with this quicker, just knock the guy off feel.
Yeah,
And-
move on. So previously you just had, he needed to be knocked off when he lost enough health.
Yeah.
And it was just taking a bit, so you had to slim that animation down and make it a little bit quicker.
So when you were talking about the creation, the conception of these creatures, you were asking about how much feedback do we get and how much do we go
Yeah.
back and forth. That was actually a design decision because once you started playing, it just took too long for it to, on the first time, even though it was awesome. We love to have fun and we add things left and
Yeah.
right, but some of it has to be sacrificed for gameplay. And the experience is what we're focused on the most. Despite of how cool the world can be and all that stuff, gameplay is first.
Yeah.
Yeah. So while it might look amazing, bigger animations might look amazing in the videos while we're just sitting here in our chairs being comfy and watching them.
If you have to wait too long for it, you just
Yeah.
you don't want to wait too long for it.
Like 2 or 3, we didn't really talk about the specifics of the time on other bigger animations, but 2 or 3 seconds in combat is enormous.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
absolutely.
a big deal. And if you're having to sit here and wait 2 or 3 seconds for this guy to do his thing, it's time to trim it down.
Yeah.
Which is sometimes a shame. So the interesting thing to me, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to kind of explain what this animation was because it
Yeah,
might look
please.
a little weird to people who seeing it all choppy. So this is kind of a process animation. This is what I first get in. I get in the key poses to sell what I need them to do, and this is an animation for the flame variant of the Dino Rider, where he breathes a fan of flame out to the players. And so I just kind of block in the key poses, selling what it needs to do. And then from there, you can get the vibe and the feel. And then that allows me to then go in and polish and make it smooth, what you see in game.
So the thing about the Dino Riders that was interesting to me is that this is a single creature. This isn't like, hey, we built this Mordrum and then we gave them mounts. This is one thing, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, guys.
Why did you ruined everything? Oh, dude. I didn't catch him falling on his rider. So for animation purposes, essentially this thing is just throwing off a piece of itself.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Whose idea was it to have him fall on his rider? Because that's just insult to injury there.
Yeah, that was probably the animator Scott Dickey's idea.
Thank you, Scott. I like it. The more I look at it, just that is the absolute best.
Oh, yeah.
So, I don't know, I'm coming up with things like the more I look at these, the more I'm like, you've gotten it down to there's like this little bounce after he lands because it's a big fleshy creature.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to convey that, and you've done it really well. If I can gush for like 2 seconds, and then we'll move on. I like it.
Well, that's kind of where that planning I showed comes in handy. You get the gist of what you need to do, and then the finer details like that bounce and the settle, that's when you can go in and add that later and polish and really make it stand out.
Yeah. All right, can we go bigger? I want to see more
we're
bigger
going
things.
Bigger. I mean,
Make it
that's pretty
bigger.
big. It's a 2 for 1.
I like him. Hey! That is terrifying. All right, so what is... I don't even know where to start. How did you even begin
It's the
to
Bride
figure
of
this out?
Vinetooth.
It's Fallon.
Yeah. So this model was actually a combination of 2 character artists. This is our lead character artist, Jim, did the body when he worked on Vinetooth. And then this version, this variant, was done by Marcus Jackson. And it went through some iterations. There were so many ideas of how to make the creature convey the personality that we wanted. You know, the female coming at the top. And,
Yeah.
And yeah, it was a really awesome experience watching these guys work on this. It was pretty awesome.
I notice it still feels like there's musculature going on in there. Like when she rears up and there's like this little quiver on the back legs before she goes down, it's not just, okay, here's this thing made out of some sticks that we found.
No. The animators put a lot of thought and love into these things. And do you guys act it out?
I mean,
Do you guys pretend, walk around going?
Oh, please
Some
say yes.
animators do it more than others, but yeah, you'll usually see animators at their desks doing like kind of figuring out a pose or a swing or some weird acting out.
I've seen a couple of those past like the corner of my eye. Somebody's just like, oh yeah, that's right,
Really?
that's a cool pose.
I am sitting in the wrong part of the building, you guys. Seriously. Because what I initially pictured was somebody in the hallway doing exactly this down the hallway, like stomping down. That would make me happy if that could happen. So yeah, I'm still going back and looking. This is still like a live creature and not just a bundle of trees.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Well, I mean, and that goes to the models as well, how they really sculpt the characters to have that muscle definition that we as animators then need to use to make them move.
So I'm reading one of these questions. What if the creatures hit on the left side? Would the animation be mirrored to better reflect the impact on the dealing blow? Sometimes we actually do have directional impact animations, but I don't think we do that much, do we?
No, I mean, the biggest ones we have are like the push back and pull forward kind of stuff.
Yeah. And it's because you're usually being hit by every single side.
Yeah, that's what's hard in our game is there's so many players all attacking one guy.
So picking up which direction you want to react when everyone's attacking you, it's tricky. So you don't want to break the illusion too much.
And go into like crazy ping pong ball.
Yeah.
Back and forth in a tiny space.
Yeah, so all these animations are what it's called canned animations. So you have them as it is and they're presented at the moment where they needs to be played. So when they die, they don't go into physics and like, ragdoll. They just die.
And they're done.
Which is cool because it actually becomes much more personal. We can convey a little bit more of the characters to their death, and then they're not just like wet mopping around.
Yeah, now we're done. Fall down. You're finished. Yeah, it takes a little bit more. So you know what I want?
Bigger.
Bigger.
Yeah, let's go bigger.
A Stave Master.
Oh, there we go.
All right, tell me about this one. Because we've seen it before. We had Leah Hoyer in here a few weeks back, and we talked about the lore behind the character, but now we're seeing how it works.
So, as I was mentioning earlier, sometimes we get support from concept. Sometimes we take some ideas and we move with that in mind and do something else. This is the complete opposite. This is based off a drawing by Cardinal, phenomenal concept artist. And this was actually handed to me, and I saw the drawing, and I was like, you know what? There's nothing I need to change from this. This is just beautiful. This is just awesome. So I try to be as loyal as I could with the model. I don't know if you can tell the arms that are wrapping around and holding.
It's super scary.
I don't know if people see that in game, but like working on it was just so cool.
Yeah, it's a thing that I try to take time to anticipate and look at instead of just rushing in and beating on things, or vice versa, or being beaten.
Well, sometimes like that sense of wonder gets overpowered by the sense of threat.
Yeah,
It's coming at
and
me.
the sense of
All right.
death.
Well, this is a character that Ronald and I both worked on together. He did the model for it, and then when I got to the animations, he kind of told me the story behind the character and what he was envisioning, and it was this creepy character, so I kind of did a bunch of creepy walk cycle and run cycle and conveyed that through the animation to match what he had modeled out.
Oh, wow.
And again, another one of those examples of using an existing rig. This is using the female human?
I
Or
think it's
Norn?
a female Norn rig,
Yeah,
since
female
it is a
Norn.
larger character.
Yeah.
So we get to use the skeleton that was already there, but you don't see humans doing that walk.
Yeah.
No.
So we get to add all these extra animations on it to convey the character.
It's so much more than just a straight copy paste. It's not,
Oh,
okay,
yeah, no.
this is a Norn with different skin.
No. There's a lot of work that goes into it.
Yeah, that's not a thing that you've seen from Norn. What is that?
That's her idle animation, when right before she's about to kill you.
Just preparing to come in and murder my face. That's fantastic. All right, so I love it.
But,
I want more.
all right.
I want bigger.
Well, ask and you
Bigger.
shall receive.
Yep.
Ooh, this is a work in
Your
progress.
baby.
Oh, my. My personal, oh yeah. This is a work in progress, early model. The reason why we have this one is because we wanted to show one of the details that is not picked up on as much, is the fact that Gorseval is made of arms. It's made of hands, just making the creature. So this is, you can tell that the arm has not been touched as much, but as you work your way down, you can see the torso and the rib cage is just arms hugging. And
So I want to interrupt you to emphasize Gorseval. If you don't know, Gorseval is a raid boss that we are bringing in very, very soon. Gorseval is made of arms.
well, the reason
Seriously.
why the reason why it's made of arms is because it's under the mythology. It's made of the souls of the people that were trapped inside. Disclaimer and secrets and whatever. So when the souls break free, it forms this creature made of anger and souls. And so I didn't want to make just ghosts and sheets kind of hugging. So I kind of had to have that sense of different people coming together. So
Yeah,
that's
it
where
is
the idea came from.
Infinitely creepier once I start realizing there's like all of these arms and hands just in there. So where can you see it best in this particular? Where should we be looking? Because there's a lot going on.
Yeah, if you look at the torso, you can see all the arms just kind of hanging around, just there.
Yeah.
It's hard to determine that those are actually hands, but yeah, they are, and they were fun to work on.
Yeah?
That was actually a lot of fun. I loved it, but it's a lot of work.
I was going to say, did it take so much longer? I mean, it's Gorseval. It's Tongue Boss guy.
I didn't want to make something generic and something that we've seen before, another dragon. So the reason why you see them being spiky is because they have physics, and in Maya, the physics are not applied directly. That's an engine. So that animation might look weird, although the physics, the physicality of it's pretty awesome. Yeah, I didn't want to make something clean. Let's put it that way. Too clean. I wanted to have a little bit of a disturbing, feel to it. So yeah.
Yeah, just a random, whatever, sleek and pretty is not going to cut it for something this big and terrifying.
So the tentacles that follow in the back were actually added as a constraint, and we didn't know whether we could do it or not. So it was just me playing around with physics and understanding how all that stuff worked. I don't usually play with rigs, but I was lucky enough that I was able to figure some of that stuff out. Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Oh, now
so
we're
that's
talking.
That's what you'll see in game.
So we
all
have the
those things
long
animated.
tentacles kind of flowing. We have the little tentacles. I don't know if you can see. There's just little ones that come off the side.
Yeah.
They also wobble a lot. And then I was like, how can I make this creepier? And so that's how the face turned out to be with gooey tongue. Just
That mostly just
drooling
makes me
around.
like want a towel to get all of the Gorseval spit off the top of my head when
I
he
always,
drools on me.
one of the original concepts that I had when he was just idling, I had him with the tongues kind of like dangling and then the player underneath just staring up at the tongues. I was like, this is going to be so much fun.
That's disgusting. All right, so he's just arms and tongues and
And
there's almost
yes.
like this spinal cord look.
Yeah,
going on in
the
here.
tentacles have that spinal feel to it, and you can see some of the spine going back. And those blobs, if you come close enough, I don't know if we can tell. Those are souls.
Zoom in enhance.
Yeah, we can.
souls.
There's sort of souls swimming inside him.
We'll have to maybe talk about the lore behind Gorseval at some point in the near future.
Ooh.
Ooh, ah. All right, so, and teeth. This is just all, I mean, you know, we've talked a lot, we've joked about Gorseval, the many-tongued, but there's a lot more going on here.
Yeah, yeah.
So how did you've got like the big spiny shield bone thing right behind his head. Is that just because it looks cool, or was there more there?
It's mostly because it looks cool.
Because it seems, see, I'm going to give you an out now. It seems like it could be a good protective thing for that little
It could
heap
very
of
well be.
souls
I
behind
mean,
him.
a lot of good designs come with the physicality and the anatomical accuracy of what it's there for. What's the purpose of this?
Yeah.
Most times we want to go in that direction. Sometimes we just want to make things cool because, whatever you visually,
Super creepy.
if something is right, but it doesn't look right, it's just not right.
Yeah.
Versus if something is not necessarily right, but it looks right, then it just is. That's the way we accept reality, which is,
Yeah.
it's interesting that we work that way. The head design actually came from Jim. We actually had several different iterations of where we were going, and then he came up with that specific head, the direction, and we were like, oh yeah, that looks awesome. That frames the face, it frames the character, brings attention to the top, and so we're trying to lead the viewer's eye into a specific direction, so you can see that the colors kind of fade into where the head is.
Yeah, it does. It does draw the eye up that way.
So we think of art, the art of, rather than just plainly the functional side of.
Yeah.
And then based on that, like animators can look at the functionality, and we'll see that head shape and be like, oh yeah, maybe he could use this as a shield or a protective thing. So the more clearly defined our creatures are, it also helps us make the creatures move how they should and naturally act like actual creatures.
Instead of just perhaps sock puppets.
Yeah, yeah.
Like we haven't shown them here, but we have those worms. What do we call those?
Oh,
They have the spikes.
Yeah, the Mordrum breachers.
Yeah, the Mordrum worms, I guess.
Oh, okay.
So,
Oh, the breachers.
yeah, so I actually worked on one of those as well. But we have them, that they have those huge spikes in the front.
Yeah.
And that actually drove the animations to have them attack you with those things. So they actually
Really?
dig their head into the ground trying to...
Yeah, I know.
But so...
I am aware.
So when it comes to the design, they have a list of animations that they want to do, or a list of attacks that they want to add. But those attacks are not finalized until the creature it's done. And it's a process that just keeps going. And sometimes we change, or we add, or what if this? Sometimes just the model itself will drive what the animation or the attack itself will be.
Yeah, I always say the animators are like the sandwich. They're the middle between the art side and the design side, because you got to have the gameplay, and the designers want
Right.
one thing, and the artists create this cool thing, and then I have to like look at the art, make it work, and look at what the design wants and make it attack how it needs to. So
All right. That answers a question I had about how do you mesh all of these things, because you have a certain amount of lore behind creatures. You have the way they look, and you have all of these skills that they need to have. And that seems like you managed to make it work. But I was just looking at everything that needed to match up and everything that needed to work going, I can't. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, where do you start?
Yeah.
That's the where do you start is the hard part. Where do you draw the inspiration? Sometimes you let the lore drive the inspiration. For example, creature made of souls. What is that?
Yeah.
And so you can just be completely literal and make like a big, cloud of souls, or see where the ideas kind of lead you, and then just process.
Yeah, I want like the big floating sheet, like the mini pet that we have.
Oh yeah.
And actually, speaking of mini pets, there's one last creature that I want to talk about because everybody loves them and loves to hate them.
Oh yeah.
Our little pocket raptors.
The little pocket raptors, yes.
They are awesome.
Because this is the opposite of you have like Gorseval, who's enormous, and you had a lot of room to work and a lot of room to play. And pocket raptors are totally the opposite. I mean, there's just not a lot going on there that you can work with. How did they
But
come into
gameplay
existence?
design is what drives them and makes them so cool.
Yeah.
They have the little pack of things jumping at you, and
Yeah, I'm
Well,
aware.
yeah.
Again, I know.
So in terms of like the animation side to
Yeah.
pocket raptors, the design is to have a lot of them, and they're small. So the animation details aren't as important since they are so small, and since there's so many of them, there's less animation detail we can add into them.
Yeah.
So they're a more simpler creature to allow for the design to work and play.
So
how it
there's a
is.
good there too.
Yeah.
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 They almost feel, because there's not a lot of room to work there, I was thinking the other day, it almost feels like they're darts being thrown at you because they just lunge through the air. And something that I was telling these guys I did yesterday, just to kind of get a good feel for some of these creatures, I did like the cheaty dev hack thing. I was on our dev client, and I made myself invisible, and then I like went up to a pocket raptor and zoomed way in, and I was just circling, getting a really good look at him, and marveling that this is the only time I'm ever going to get to do this.
Yeah.
But I couldn't help but notice he's not just like a cardboard cutout sitting there. I mean, he had movement and fluidity, and even with this tiny little thing where there's just like, it's almost just like a mini pet.
Yeah.
And mini pet's not confirmed. I have to keep saying this.
yeah. Disclaimer.
But even then, when there's just this tiny little thing, you were able to do a lot with it, which was kind of cool. So if you can stealth up your character somehow and just get in there and peek at one, it's pretty neat to look at them. Yeah. So, well, thank you guys very, very much. I appreciate you coming on to talk to us about all of these cool new things that you made.
Our pleasure.
And now we know that the mushroom guys are Skrit in disguise.
Yeah.
This is what they've done with their gathered intelligence, is become mushrooms. I don't think that's how animation actually works. I've learned nothing, apparently. No, it was really informative, and I appreciate you guys taking your time. So,
Pleasure.
Yeah.
and thank you guys for hanging out with us.
Yeah.
So,
Thanks for joining us.
yep. We will see you guys next week. Bye.